Don't Give Up Your Day Job, a local musician's guide. By me, Paul Gillings. An educational and sometimes humorous look at what it's like to be part of the local music scene. Now in conjunction with Indie Kid Records. Hello and welcome to another edition of Don't Give Up Your Day Job, the local musician's guide. I'm very, very pleased and privileged to have with me today a bona fide rock star, someone who has actually made it and given up his day job at one point. I have the guitarist from A, Mr. Mark Chapman. Hello Mark, how you doing?
Yeah, I'm very well, Paul, and you?
I'm great, mate. I'm all the better for having you round. Thank you so much for joining me.
No, not at all. Not at all.
Our now mutual friend, Mr. Richard Trigg from C327, put in a good word for us.
Yes, bless him. No, he's a good friend, very good friend.
Yeah, he does a lot. He does some tech for you and stuff like that, I take it.
He does everything. He basically runs the band.
Right.
Yeah. So we've got a tour coming up soon, and he'll be driving the van, he'll be setting up gear, he'll be...
Yeah, he didn't tell me he drives the van he didn't tell me he drives the van as well.
Yeah.
Blimey.
Yeah, I know.
He is a good old boy, so that's great. So yeah, band A, I mean, my experience of A, as I said to you, I mean, you haven't heard me either, so it's not a big insult. It was very limited, and so as far as what I do remember mostly is around 2001, 2002, early noughties. Yeah. I was just starting a young family and getting off the music scene, and you know where you lose connection for that bit of years because you're changing nappies and doing the family thing and stuff like that. We're all doing it, but I do remember you guys coming up and you had a couple of Starbucks and nothing, and it was around the same sort of time I guess as Darkness, and it was just before. Yeah. I mean, it was all very. A local band done good, and the amount of people that I met that said they knew you guys, or had been in a band with you, came out of the woodwork. They were everywhere. Oh, I know, I'm friends with them. Oh yeah, we'll text them then. Oh, I'm not that good, right? All of a sudden, whiff of success. Everyone knows you. So, what I'd like to get through to, because obviously this podcast is helping our fellow musicians out there fighting the good fight, trying to make it and stuff like that, is where did it all start for you? How did you get there? Is what I want to know. Tell me your secrets. So talk early days. Sorry, guitar. You're a guitarist.
Yeah.
How did you get into the guitar?
I got in. Mum and Dad never played any instruments.
No
at
musical
all,
family.
But it was a musical kind of household. Mum was a big Elvis fan. She loved a bit of Elvis, so that would be Scotty Moore on guitar probably that I was listening to, and kind of, it just, I don't know, something ticked the box, and I loved it. And then my dad was kind of more in rock, classic rock, Deep Purple, Focus, stuff like that.
Oh wow, the prog stuff, yeah.
But also like Thin Lizzy, UFO, and all these kind of great bands are sort of the 70s onwards. And so there was always music or always an LP being played in the house, you know, and that, looking back, you know, Mum and Dad never had any money, but that was such a great...
They were spending it all on albums by the sound of it, mate.
Well, this was the thing, because around that time, he couldn't afford many albums, so it was then, there used to be a record library in Lowestoft.
Okay. Yeah.
So every few weeks, my dad would sort of come back from work, and then he'd go down to the record library, pick up half a dozen albums, you know, bring them home for a week or two, and then take them back and sort them for another 5 or 6 albums.
Stick them on a cheeky cassette.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah, good. Yeah.
So that was kind of where you know. So there was always music. I remember me and my brother and my dad one evening watching either Rock Goes to College or Sound in Concert.
Right.
One of those, and AC/DC were on there.
Oh, yeah.
So my brother, who's still a drummer locally, he got out the saucepans. I got my dad to cut me out a cardboard guitar, and we were Angus and Phil.
That's it. That was family band. Fantastic. And that dedication to get that music, your dad, like having to go to the library.
Exactly.
Can you imagine people that get on his phone these days having to go to that length?
I know.
That's some dedication to that love of it.
And because it was tangible, they'd bring home these albums, and there you were, like rifling through them, looking at the artwork, looking at the lyrics, but you couldn't actually play them until you got home. You just like got this thing in your hand that you know, you just couldn't quite. You had no idea whether you're going to love it or hate it, and I remember it as clear as day. One week, I think my dad and my brother went to the record library, brought back a bunch of albums, and in amongst all of these records was the first Van Halen album.
Right.
And that was the lightning bolt. That was where it became like, not just an infatuation with like bands and music. I heard Eddie Van Halen play.
The guitar,
the guitarist
right.
of my generation.
Yeah, that was my moment with the harmonica. Was like all that noise from that tiny instrument.
Yeah, yeah.
And like you say, it just goes. Oh, this just becomes your entire world.
Can't quite,
your entire world.
You know. And it seemed like a lot of bands, like a lot of guitarists in bands back then, were kind of constricted and confined. But like with listening even now to Van Halen, it was just a free kind of world to him. He could do what he wanted within a 3-minute pop song. Yeah. You know, it's still, to this day...
I guess it stopped being a backing instrument, didn't it? It stopped being the rhythm and the chords, and it led. Yeah. And led in a most incredibly mind-blowing way. I know. Right?
Yeah, when you think back, what was it, sort of in the Charlie Christian era and Django Reinhardt and people like that, back in the 30s and 40s, guitar was probably below banjo on the pecking order in the orchestra.
It was chugging away. Harmonica.
It was chugging away in the background, wasn't it? And then all of a sudden, one or two guitarists listened to the sax or the trumpet players and thought, what will happen if I bend that string? What will happen if I play some scales? And here we are, where it's crazy. So it'd be fascinating one day to maybe do an evolution of how it began up to...
harmonica players do that in my little realm, do that all the time. And I was just thinking then, as you were saying about that evolution from the rhythm instrument into the lead and where it came from. I mean, the harmonica, especially the diatonic harmonica, is laid out chordally. So for example, on a C harmonica you get a C chord on a blow and a G chord on the draw. So it was just chugging, and then there's a major scale at the right hand in the middle. So you play a tune out of your right hand side of your mouth and play the chords and chug, basically, to German umpire music, the left-hand side of your mouth. So then, all of a sudden, it went over to America, so this evolution has been very well plotted. I thought, well, actually, the difference between those two notes in that hole, you can get a bend out of that. And that's actually been plotted, and I know guys, especially Joe Falisco, who could probably tell you the actual recording.
Yeah, well, that's what gets
the proper nerds out there, yeah.
And I was asking a music teacher once... like at school, because she knew a lot of history about music, and I said to her, like, it's crazy. How did like with guitar, obviously blues and jazz and sort of this early kind of music, improv and that. How did these predominantly black musicians who weren't allowed education, who weren't allowed the kind of privilege that white people had, like how did they then become so evolved at playing guitar, and where did it come from?
Somebody told them that no one told them they couldn't do
that. Exactly, yeah.
In a way, we both know classical education can sometimes be a restriction.
Yeah, these are the rules. This is what you're allowed to do and what you're not. Whereas, like, you listen to sort of some of the early jazz musicians and the blues guitarists. I mean, it's frightening, absolutely frightening. You think we haven't really moved that far from, the ability they had. The Wes Montgomerys and people like that, jazz players. I mean, it's incredible. Absolutely unreal playing.
So the guitar, you decided on that moment, that time that I saw Wonder Woman take her glasses off and shake her hair, that I liked girls. You saw that and went, I like guitars.
Yes. Again, it was looking at the album, seeing these 4 pictures of Eddie, Dave, Mike and Alex Van Halen, and
the concept
thinking,
of
what's this going to sound like? He had
Yeah.
this stripy guitar, first 3 songs, Running with the Devil, Eruption, the guitar solo, and You Really Got Me, kind of the Hot Rod cover song. And there it was just perfect.
So how did you convince then your parents to get you a guitar, or did you save up and get your own? Did you steal one? How did you get one?
Well, this is the thing with my mum and dad, they're just brilliant, because they never once said, we don't think it's for you, we can't, So they, and being a left-handed guitarist back in the 70s, or, probably about 10 years old, so I was probably 79, 80, to then look for a guitar, because I then said, I'd like a guitar for Christmas. Having had a ukulele.
Couldn't just go online,
no, and like a catalogue Bontempi plastic guitar, which, okay, it looked okay, but I don't ever know if it made it in tune or not. But yeah, going from that, and then one Christmas, on about my 10th birthday, they managed to, I think we got it from Alan's Music in Yarmouth or something, and it was a right-handed K guitar. It probably cost about 30 quid back then,
Probably... week's wages, I guess, isn't it? I remember I begged my parents for a guitar before I got into the harmonica. I absolutely begged them. I must have been about 8 or 9. They were offering guitar lessons at school, and it was originally a flat no, because they want 20 quid, and that's that's a week's wages, and no, just no.
I mean, I got I got the guitar for Christmas. I didn't know what to do with it. Then there was a chap who lived across the road from us, and he used to like strum an acoustic and sing a bit. So Mum and Dad invited him round one evening just so I could watch someone play it, and he taught me E and D chords and strummed basically Peggy Sue.
Fantastic.
Buddy Holly, and sang it, and there it was.
What a guy to start your first song, though.
Yeah.
What a master to start your first tune on, mate. That's a great start to the education, that is.
And then it was paper round, paying for the odd guitar lessons, just because I had no idea what to do. Oh, and really? Then very early on, when I start to come through the ranks of the guitar lessons, like I only went for probably 6 months or so, just to get basic scales and chord shapes. And then it's down to practice. And then I got in a band. Yeah. Very, very early on.
Was this straight on with the guys from A? Or
No. This was
Grand Designs.
This would have been before that. A band called Phoenix. Okay. Oh yes, we played. All the holiday camps and all the pubs and clubs. But because we were probably 13 or 14 years old, and we could play, and the drummer would do a drum solo.
Oh, wow. Well, that's that then. If you're
cool.
on holiday in the 1980s, and there's a band of teenagers, and one of them, you'd think you'd made it.
Exactly,
you? That's great.
But there we go. We were learning all the cover songs.
Well, that's an awful great way to get a great musical education with all of those tunes. And the more tunes that you learn, I mean, I've said this on this podcast before about watching the Beatles Get Back documentary, that they knew thousands and thousands of songs, and they didn't really, and that was their musical education. You get to learn form,
Exactly. And the stamina of being able to play for an hour or do a gig in a pub.
You get your 10,000 hours up pretty sharp.
You do.
Like that,
especially if you've got a few quo numbers in the set and you've got to keep the 12 bar going. But that's the thing. Like now, like teaching guitar lessons and passing that knowledge on. Kids. This is what I'm saying. If you play a gig, you've got to play for an hour and a half.
Yeah.
You've got to stand there, and they moan after they've played like for 2 minutes.
Like,
look,
you've
got to play X amount of songs in that time. They're not all the same.
Yep.
And so I was in a band pretty quickly.
Yeah.
And so covers, all of that, rehearsing in the school hall, all of that stuff. But you kind of feel cool doing it, because not everyone can.
You played guitar, and that's a cool instrument. I played mouth organ, that weren't terribly cool. I had long ginger hair, and then I played the mouth organ. No wonder I couldn't get a girlfriend. But a guitar, especially, I'm so glad that you did the cabaret, did the work at the camps as well, because that's where they put us. We learned like 90s and 30s, 1940s, like show tunes, like Caravan and stuff like that, and all these really, that even my parents hadn't heard of. But like you say, you have to stand there for an hour and a half, 2 hours every night. Sometimes do 2 shows a night. If you don't know your instrument by the end of a season of that, then you ain't gonna, are you?
Yeah, and if you stuck through it for that, you're gonna stick with it. Because it does kind of get easier in a way. You get used to it, and the stamina of it, and just being able to play a gig. Yeah, absolutely.
So this was in Raiden, would that be right? Which is just down the road from where we are, for those who get the demographics, or sometimes demographics, the geographics out of it, about 3 or 4 miles away. I used to work at Micropress, actually, for 15 years I worked there, which is now in Raiden. So you had your cabaret band, you had your covers band, did all that. What happened next? How did you go from that to trying to pull off Rush covers?
Well, okay, so when I was about 14, so I was still in a band, covers band, and then again, I got hit by the lightning bolt with the Van Halen album. I got hit by 2 lightning bolts with Adam and Jason Perry.
I mean, I've only seen them in videos, but they look like a likely pair of lads.
They're brilliant. And the younger brother, Giles, as well. But obviously, at school, Giles, being a couple of years younger, it wasn't so cool to hang out with, But Adam and Jason,
kids,
they came into school, and we, even now, texting, talking to them, I don't know. There's this bond.
Yeah.
You find with it's sense of humour.
It starts from that. Dream to get a band together in high school.
Yeah.
It happens so rarely, but it's something that we'd all would dearly have loved to have in our past, like the U2s of this world and stuff like that. Got together as school kids and
and it's the hardest thing in the world to keep hold of that.
Really,
it really is. But I mean, they came Raiden School, and I think they were more from the kind of the background of bands like the Jam, Big Country, U2, early stuff,
yeah,
all of that
all
kind of
stuff. Yeah,
yeah. But it was less. Whereas me, Van Halen, Brian May,
more progressive.
Jay Keeley, I was listening to
a bit more than three
guitar
chords
solo.
in there, isn't there?
Yeah. So when I'll never forget they came round one afternoon in the summer holidays or whatever, and we were just we always hung out, and I think I just learned how to play the Hammerfall guitar solo.
Oh yeah,
by Brian May.
Cracking.
And I played it, and they could not believe it because they'd never seen a single note. It was all kind of big chords and power chords and stuff, where they came from. And all of a sudden, they're watching me play this, and that freaked them out. And then, so I think they looked at me already in covers bands at school, and they probably thought, "Wow, that's the best thing I've ever seen." But then I saw them play gigs, and they would pull in a lot more people, and I just thought they were great because they had that natural, again, going back to how it's not, you're not schooled in it.
No.
You just got this thing, and they had it. And so then I quit whatever band I was in, and I think they were kind of, shouldn't we ask him? And I remember I went round theirs one afternoon, and I said, well, I'll join a band with you then. And they... Right, you're in. We better tell the rest of the band we've got another guitarist, sort of thing.
Yeah. Cool.
And that was it. That probably 15 years old or so, probably
Wow.
15 or 16. So yeah, getting towards the end of school, but that was when we got together, and.
So did the end of school, was that something on the horizon then? Was it something thinking, right, well, some are going to go have to get jobs, someone's going to go to college?
Well, I went straight to an apprenticeship because I was brought up, mum and dad, you got, get yourself a job and all that. But Adam and Jace, I think they thought a little bit more out of the box. I went to college, Art College, just in Lowestoft, and then went to Ipswich Art College. Yeah. And that was when they then moved to London.
Right,
because we were still in this band, writing, demoing, just doing, trying to... That was Grand Designs, then turned into A.
So why did you pick the most difficult to Google band name in the entire world? Obviously, Google wasn't a thing back then.
That was why.
How could you possibly have thought, well, we've got to find a name. Do you think bands sit there and go,
we thought we'd design a good logo.
It's a great logo, yeah.
And we thought about looking for us in the record racks before ABBA and AC/DC.
See, I like that. I like that there's that sort of thought behind it.
And here's another bit of trivia.
Please.
When we were at school, there were two Mark Chapmans at school.
Right.
My middle name was Andrew, Mark A. Chapman.
Right.
The other guy was Mark Henry H. So they used to call us A and H at school.
Right, okay.
So really, in a way, could the band be named after me? I don't know.
I think it is. Sounds to me like it is. I don't think that's.
But yeah, we didn't really. Yeah, the internet was in its infancy, if it even existed then. I don't know.
What are we talking about? 93, 94?
Well, yeah. By the time we got the band name, we did record our first album in 96. So yeah, 94, 95.
Yeah, I don't think it was commonplace at that particular point. 96, 97, perhaps. Yeah. A bit more, but yeah, it wasn't.
But yeah, you're right. That's what probably killed it all off for us.
Well, I didn't say that. I don't think so. No, it's funny how you picked the... I mean, I really, really like the fact... I don't want to focus too much. That you picked it because it'd be first in record racks.
Yeah.
Because that's very early search engine, isn't it? We need to be found. Where will be found? Straight in front of the store.
And we're so critical with each other about everything, anything...
So that was well thought.
We jump on each other's sentences. What did you just say? And so any band name would just be the most embarrassing thing.
I fucking hate picking band names, man. I really, any start of any new band, I mean, it sounds to me like you haven't had to do that so much throughout your career, really. But any time we join a band, what are we going to call ourselves? Oh, God, I don't know. Yeah. Jesus, because anything nowadays, especially, you think you're stuck with, or, someone will pick ours. But most of the times, especially with local bands, you find that nobody cares because no one's fucking listening anyway.
No. And as well, trying to think of song titles, especially when you're recording an instrumental idea.
Yeah.
That can be... It's just so hard out there. People don't understand.
They don't understand what we go through as artists, the pain. So do you think that the move to London that them two boys did, that got out of Dodge?
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, I have heard of that's the thing to do. Well, you need to move down the line, you need to go down. So that, especially, I think that's why one of the reasons my career never really took off after I won a world champs when I was 17. That I wasn't prepared to move down to London by myself. I was too scared.
Yeah.
It was a big city, and
they had
was
each other because they were twins, so they both kind of did the move together, and that was a big thing because then all of a sudden, fair enough, in high school, you might be looked at as being this amazing musician. But yeah, you go to any city
You're a
and
tiny
you're
fish,
playing with
aren't
other
you?
bands,
Yep.
you get to see pretty quick, oh my God, there's some good play. You know.
At that time, there was a lot of unsigned bands. I remember the NME reporting that there was
Yeah.
up to 10,000 unsigned bands at one time.
So I was spending most weekend, you know, or every other weekend,
Getting down there.
just going down. Where was it? East Finchley. They lived Wembley for a while and all round. But yeah, just kind of driving down on a Friday night, coming back on a Sunday night.
It was an exciting time to be in a band with a
It
Britpop
was.
going about then.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, that must have been
And-
insane.
and
Did
record
you see all
labels
those
would-
young bands like the
There was
Republic and all
you know,
those
like even now, like with bands like Ash.
Yeah.
I mean, God, who else was around there? Fide.
Yeah.
Bands like that.
Well,
Obviously,
Fide were
Reef
great.
were you know,
Kingpins. They were top of the charts.
but it was
kind of
all
thing.
those sort of bands, proper bands that labels were nurturing and kind of investing in, and so we were sort of on the back of that. Placebo, bands like that.
Love Placebo.
You know, and so it was a good, healthy time. You look at, you know, when Trig finds some of the old posters for like Reading Festival back in the day, and, that, and you look at the lineup and you think, my God,
I would die to go to that
it
festival
will
now.
never be that good again.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know?
I mean, I watched a lot of a guy on YouTube called Rick Beato, and he
Yeah.
was. Do you watch him?
Yeah.
I mean, he likes to talk about and just chew the fat over. Has rock had its day?
Yeah.
And it's sort of the last time that it seeped into the culture was Nirvana and the grunge era and stuff like that. And he talks about Britpop as well. That it was bands being in the pop charts, in number one of the hit parade.
Yeah, yeah.
And you know
they couldn't get ignored, could they?
no.
The fan base and everything.
But these days, not so much. It's almost like a little niche.
Yeah.
You know that some hardcore, especially the older amongst us, the more middle aged, that have some disposable income, spend it on tickets to go see Reef and buy their CDs because we want to support them and stuff like that. You know.
But you know, sometimes like now the big arena shows and whatnot, they're just so expensive. I don't think I would part with my money to go and see half these bands anymore because I don't want to pay £100 for a ticket.
Absolutely not. My little girl has got into a K-pop.
Right.
And she wants to go and see a K-pop band called Blackpink.
Okay.
And I think that's £150 a ticket last I looked.
It's just, I don't know.
It's like,
Is
what
it
if I
right?
remortgage my house
Yeah,
to watch 4 little girls mime?
I know.
It's what I've got to do, at least learn an instrument and play it in front of me.
So like with this Reef tour, I'm sure, tickets are probably 20, 30 quid, I don't know. But, you know, that fair enough. But, yeah.
Well, we can't expect it to pay. I think I paid the first time I saw Reef at the UAO, I paid £7.50.
Yeah.
I can't expect it to stay like that forever.
No.
Which I think was 97.
Right.
And,
would that have been with Feeder or not?
I
Could that have been
believe so.
supported? Yeah.
The second time I saw him at the UAA, another local boy, Matty P, was supporting him.
Okay.
And he had his seagull on top of his amp and stuff.
Yeah.
Bless his heart.
Genius, though. Very clever.
He is a great. I've been lucky enough to jam with the man a couple of times, but he's gone off to do some carpentry in Welsh Wales. I do believe. Yeah. He's having a lovely time down there. He laid our floor downstairs that you walked through to get.
Oh, right.
Yeah, he's quite a good friend with my wife, you see,
Yeah.
and his brother Frank as well. Lovely.
Yeah,
lovely
Frank.
guy.
I was in a little band with Frank for a while. We tried to get something up and running. But all those Pescod boys, just so talented.
So talented. Yeah, it sickens you, doesn't it?
Makes you sick. Actually,
But
makes
just
you
like creative, not just like instrument wise, like Frank, like completely untrained on his piano and just whip off a sonata at the
Jack is crazy good.
And then just
well, watching Matt because he was at the See-Through gig just before Christmas.
was he?
We were like supporting Triggs a lot. There.
Oh, did he?
Yeah,
Actually, I didn't
he
know
just
he
went
was
on for like
supporting.
20 minutes, and just took his guitar, but like
so
talk
original.
about drawing you in.
It's so
like,
original.
Finger picking,
Yeah.
just made it look the simplest thing. Yeah,
That's him.
I hate him.
And he's good looking as well.
Yeah, that's brilliant, lovely people.
Yeah, I mean, it's good to know that that sort of young community, that local band scene did well.
Yeah.
For other pods as well, and I'm still playing. I don't think Matty is so much these days, but I'm really glad to hear that he did the See-Through gig. I did not see Nose in town.
No,
he didn't say. Usually in concert
turned
with
up,
Mrs.
played, and went.
Bless him.
Yeah.
So you were going. So to get back to our story of how you did it.
Yeah.
You were making the trips back and forth to London.
Yes.
Playing support gigs, playing open mics. What were you doing?
Just kind of support gigs,
Wherever you could.
demoing. We then got years before we'd even got signed, we'd got some interest from a manager in America God knows how now, through another manager who, anyway. And so we had this chap who wanted to manage us. So he moved. He was then living in London, I think, for a while. And then we managed to somehow we did a gig at the Water Rats at King's Cross.
Okay.
There was a club on the back of a pub. And somehow, through a few demos and just word of mouth, and there was a few whispers about this new band, sort of thing.
Who'd created this little hype? You don't know, or
well, I think it was just
created
hustling, like manager, sort of putting a few feelers out to record labels. One record label had then sat the others. So you going to this gig at the weekend, and blah blah blah, all of that. And before we knew it, we'd got this kind of showcase gig with a couple of other bands at this venue in London at Water Rats, and I think, I mean, I don't know the exact number, but there was like 10 record labels there, A&R guys, just looking for.
So you heard about these things in the sort of in the mid '90s, late '90s, that you thought, oh yeah, there was loads of people, and then they started to like almost like commoditize that in the early noughties, whereby the band I was in, Nexus, we were told, oh, you know, there'll be a room full of A&Rs. Yeah. You know, you need to bring 25 of your mates, sell 25 tickets. You could be on a bill with 6 other bands. Yeah. So you were there at the actual genuine stuff, which then these promoters went, oh, that's a good idea. We can sell that to these farmer boys out in Lowestoft. Get them to drive down there.
So I then come back to, you know, I came back to Suffolk. I then went back to work on the Monday. And then, you know, like, I think I was still living with Mum and Dad at the time. We were sort of doing up our house. And the phone would be going, and that'd be Adam and Jason in London, like they've got meetings tomorrow with EMI, with this label and that label, and you're like, oh my God, this could happen then. Yeah, like it had just built up this momentum where there's no way it wasn't not going to happen. You know, it had to happen. So I was just sort of going back to work and thinking, bloody hell, this is.
Could be giving up your day job.
Yeah, and I did.
Was it Warner Brothers you signed with?
Yeah, we signed to London Warners. Wow. And obviously one of the reasons was money, because they offered, you know,
I was going to say, what was the kind of advance? I mean, we're terribly British and we don't like to talk about obscene amounts of money.
Let's talk it. Tell us. Late 90s.
How much are we talking about?
We're talking like 150.
150 quid? Well, about 50.
It was 150 grand.
That's a fair size, isn't it?
That was a chunk then, so and there was tour support, and there was all this other stuff they added because they didn't really have many rock bands on their roster, and I think they'd got a lot of pop acts, and they wanted to build up.
Do they want to be in that Britpop?
Exactly.
Thing,
they wanted a kind of band with a bit of longevity, and the American side of the label, Slash Records, I think, had Faith No More, because we were just like. That was one of our top 5 bands back in the day with Mike Patton. And
so what did a record contract look like in those days? What kind of things were they promising? Do you remember? Do you remember what you had to do to fulfil it?
Not really. No, we just signed along the line. It was, I mean,
10 albums and all your royalties for the rest of life. Well, there was that thing
where they'll have. Like you'll record one album, then will they pick up the option for the next? But if they did, it was kind of worked well in our favour financially. You know, where we could just keep paying wages and stuff. Yeah. But there was also the big thing of tour support, where we knew we were going to be one of those bands that had to go out and play and take our music to the people. Yeah. You know. Yeah. So that was a big thing. We didn't want not to tour. You were
used to that being the cabaret band, weren't you?
Yeah. We just go out.
You were trained
wherever.
for that.
So that was a big thing. And you know, when they schmooze you, they tell you everything you want to hear.
Is that right?
Just think, this is going to be, this is going to be the best thing. And then we released the first album, and no one really got to hear about it. But
really?
Because at the time, my wife Michelle, she was pregnant, and our first boy was born sort of middle of December. But we were out through November in LA for that first album, recording our first album in California.
Right.
Because we got do you want to go? That was the guy who produced Offspring, Tom Wilson, I think.
Wow.
The guy, record producer.
Yeah, so you're not going to say no to that, are you?
No, exactly. It was in the canyon in LA or in the valley, and it was like, well, Jane's Addiction had recorded there. find out where Eddie Van Halen lives, just up the road.
So was there like a choice? So if you can either record your album in London and be home to your family every night, or you can go over there and do that.
Or this guy Tom Wilson will record in LA, and because for us it was a no-brainer. Why not? You know,
well, because you had a young family on the way.
Well, I did, and luckily I got back for everything.
She must be very understanding.
Yeah, absolutely.
Even back then, I mean, I can't imagine, like in my first marriage, I can't imagine when my first son, I was to LA. Well, I don't know, because it would have been my dream. It probably would have been some sort of negotiation.
Well, I think that was...
So once in a lifetime, hey?
Yeah, it was. And the due date was such a day, and I knew I was going to be back before then, so you just pray she wasn't early delivering, and luckily she was a couple of weeks late, so anyway I got back with plenty of time. But yeah, it was one of those opportunities where, do you want to record your album in the same studio as Jane's Addiction have been in and stuff like that? And because we weren't this little Brit poppy, we never thought of ourselves like that. We would play big, fast rock songs, and we always saw
there is an edge.
Yeah,
comparatively.
exactly.
I know I talked about the Britpop era at the start, but there is an edge to your music that Britpop didn't have.
No.
And like you say, Britpop was very strummy, very sort of it was. I mean, I was really into Oasis at the time and Blur, because it was accessible, and I thought, even I can play that on the guitar.
Yeah.
And if they can get off the dole doing it, so can I.
Yeah, absolutely. But no, we went to America.
Yeah.
We went out there and we recorded, and then we kind of came back, and things with this manager didn't really work out. He wasn't getting us enough work. So then we jumped ship and got with another manager.
So is the old adage true that a good manager finds you, you don't find them?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. Because we, living around London, there was, a lot of people around there. But the guy we ended up getting with, Tank, his management company, he ended up managing Reef as well.
Okay.
So it's about this time when Reef were like becoming like big band.
Yeah, they were huge.
And then all of a sudden, this guy's managing them, and then he wants to manage us as well. Well, there we go.
Yeah, right.
We'll get it. He'll have a piece of that.
Yeah.
So yeah, we got with this other management company, and he sort of put us to work, crazy. But then we went and recorded our second album, because with the first album, the mix of it is very distorted. It doesn't sound that great. It sounds a bit thin and
really for all the going to LA.
All of that, it was just a bit too hot and a bit like.
Yeah.
But then we came back, and one of the songs that got picked for a single, we had remixed by a guy called Al Clay. And he was doing a lot of Britpoppy kind of bands at the time, but he's just got these ears for mixing.
Right.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
And so he mixed a couple of tracks, and they just stood out from the rest of the album. And so when we went back in to record again we could have gone anywhere to record, but he'd spent a lot of time in Brussels at a studio.
Yeah.
Which had just vaults of vintage gear and all stuff, and he said, we should check this place out before you want to go off to California again.
Yeah.
And so we picked this ICP studio in Brussels with Al.
Okay.
And because then we released the second album, and the sound of it was better, the ideas were better. Al was such a great producer, like vocally helping Jace, helping with guitar lines, helping with everything.
Do you think you'd matured as a band
Absolutely,
as well?
yeah,
So a bit of touring, bit of playing together.
Exactly, yeah. You learn your craft.
Learn your craft. Yeah, absolutely. I guess if again, just like back in the doing the holiday camp days. You've done your time. You put in your hours,
absolutely,
and it's the only way to do it, isn't it?
And so then we released that second album, Monkey Kong, and it wasn't doing that great over here. But then we had a song, I Love Lake Tahoe, and it really kicked off around Germany.
Yeah,
like big song out there. And that's another thing where you go to another country and you don't, And we got really well looked after in Germany by the label. Two of the guys there, Ola and Sasha, who used to take us out. And just used to hang out with the band. It wasn't a cool London thing where, that's your band.
They're aloof.
These guys would turn up in AC/DC T-shirts and sit and watch the gig and buy us drinks afterwards, and just loved the music and loved being on tour with the band. And that was a real, that was an eye-opener as well, because going to Germany, hanging out with like friendly people who are so into what you're doing.
Yeah.
Massive sort of confidence boost as well, and getting on a few big tours and big gigs over there. Yeah, and then we brought that back here, and then that led on then to, Hi-Fi Serious, that album, which, we had our little bit of a moment over here.
With Starbucks and
Starbucks, nothing went top 10. Starbucks went top 20, I think. But
yeah.
But yeah, they on the back of that, we were meant to then go. I remember doing radio interviews, Australian radio. We were meant to go over there and do a bunch of festivals. Nothing was kicking off in Australia like it's the most played song over here. You got to get over here and play.
Yeah.
We're doing all these interviews and press and that, and we were going to go to Japan, and then we're going to jump over Australia.
Do all that side of work.
Yep.
Yeah. Wow. What
and
a
then
dream.
at the last minute, the label pulled the plug on the Australian side of the tour, and
did they give a reason for that?
Not probably financial. They
really?
wanted us to go back in and record some new stuff, and it's those little moments you think, if we'd have just gone and solidified that fan base and gone out there and put on an A show in Australia, who knows?
Yeah, I mean, you have, but even by that point, if it got a millennium past, anyone else around here, and anyone I know and myself will ever dream of getting.
Yeah.
So that's an amazing achievement, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
So was there a feeling to want more then? Were you proper gutted about that, or at the time were you like, well, I've done great. Oh, I'm a rock star. It's all right.
I'm not really a rock star, but there was.
Bloody are a rock star. I'm sorry,
there was a time when I think because you used to walk kids to school, local schools, and that.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Was it weird doing that and then coming home to do that?
But because we'd been this live band and a radio band before, you come home and no one would really know what you'd been up to. You'd walk the kids to school. I probably thought I was in the SAS. I'd been away for a month, come back.
I did that because my fame was when I was at school. So I went on this American tour, came back, and they thought that I'd left the school.
Yeah.
So I'd been off-rolled.
Yeah. Well, I'd go and pick the kids up, and people would see me. Oh, you're back. What you been up to? And you'd say bits and bobs, but I never really went on that much about it. But when it got to Hi-Fi Serious and we were on Top of the Pops and stuff like that, all of a sudden, all these parents at school are like, I had no idea. Yeah, I saw you on telly. I had no idea.
Did they make you mime on Top of the Pops?
There was one time we played it totally live. One time Jason sung live at We Mimed. Yeah, it's all of that rubbish. One time, the best time, we were on tour, and all our gear, the gig that night was in Exeter.
Oh.
Yeah. So we had to rent a load of gear just to mime on Top of the Pops.
Oh, Christ.
Left the studio. I mean, this is the one time we felt like rock stars. This was going to happen. So we leave the Top of the Pop studio. We did our Nothing or Starbucks performance. We get driven across London to Chelsea to some helicopter pad where our MD of our label's got his own helicopter.
Of course he has.
We're walking towards a helicopter, and I went to the rest of the band Bagsy front seat. So obviously I sat in the front seat with the pilot.
Yeah.
And we fly to Exeter in a helicopter to then
God's
do
sake.
the gig at the uni that night or whatever.
Wow. Bloody hell. That's a huge rock and roll moment.
Those little bits, yeah.
And then you come home, you take the kids to school, you're down the supermarket.
Yeah.
I mean, there must have been some sort of almost like, I don't know, like PTSD or something.
Yeah.
Like these guys have on Civvy Street after seeing a
a bit where it takes a couple of days to kind of just get back into your sleep patterns but there was little moments where you did think, my God, this could pay the mortgage. This could.
Yeah.
This
that's an interesting one. I take it there wasn't vast sums of money swimming around at this.
No, because when there's 5 of you in the band and the manager and blah blah blah, and you've got a.
So it's being paid out of the advance and ticket sales for gigs and stuff like that.
Well,
so
back then,
you handle all your finances with all that. Was that all the record company?
Well, because the record label would then give you tour support money to go out and tour. We didn't really see a lot of that, but we were giving ourselves a wage. I mean, nowadays I think bands are a lot more tied in with the merch and stuff where that pays, because record sales now.
Who dealt with your performing rights and stuff like that?
We still do like PRS and PPL.
So you all register those yourself off from the off, or was that something that
was
taught
something
you to do?
we did? Yeah, from day one. I'm pretty sure.
That's pretty savvy. That's real savvy for a young band.
Yeah,
guys I talk to have absolutely no clue about it.
No, and that's still. I mean, not so much for my case because I've not written tons of stuff for other people, but for like Jason, who's writing and recording other bands, all of this stuff that it keeps coming in. Even for me,
like a little residual passive income kind of thing that trickles in there.
You forget about it, then there's a check turn up for a couple £100 again, and you're like, oh, okay, well,
I saw you had 73,000 odd monthly listeners on Spotify. So there's at least £2.50.
Great, innit, eh? Don't give up your day job.
Yeah, it's not worth it. You won't get even on Spotify. But the thing is, I find with Spotify is that, especially for me who's starting out, for want of a better term, if I'm not on there, no one's going to listen to me.
Exactly.
And I've got to give something away to hook people in to listen to my music.
Yeah.
So I'm not moaning about Spotify really. I think it's daft for the more established guys and stuff like that. But then you look at Queen stats, it's almost like 50 odd million.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Like they need the money.
Yeah.
But I mean, and for mid-range guys like yourself, that would be a nice income, because 73,000 odd listeners every month, if they were actually buying CDs, would be a pissing fortune, wouldn't it? I know. That'd be incredible.
Yeah, I think it needs to get looked at. It would be nice, because obviously these companies are making so much money. But as you kind of learn when you're in a band, you're a lot of the time on tour or whatever, you're bottom of the food chain, aren't you?
Yeah, which is crazy, because you think.
I mean,
you
look at you guys. With you.
And just like working in a factory or working in any of those places, they couldn't run the firm without you.
Exactly.
But at the same time, you're a cog in a wheel and made to feel like nothing. But from the outside, especially with the job of rock star, for want of a better term, from outside. From us looking at you because I've seen you in a couple of videos I've been watching this morning on YouTube, looks amazing. Look at him, look, he's having the time of his life. He's a rock star, and you're like, well, I'm not earning any bloody money, so I'm going to have to go and train to be a teacher. Thanks very much.
Yeah.
But
and that's the reality of it. But
you've got to do it for the love, right?
Because you do,
and because you just can't stop. Most of the time, I don't know how I would stop. Every now and again, I get frustrated and think, do you know what? I'm not bloody getting anywhere. Even though it's only been 4 years. I think, fuck this. I spent a fortune. I've put my heart into this record, and nobody cares. And I've got a release coming out on the 1st of March, and I'm like, well, the record company aren't doing piss all really, and I get a bit frustrated and blah blah. Keeps hassling them, and they're nice guys. They really are superb guys. But it's a new label and stuff like that. I think I'm done. I'm done. I won't do this anymore. And then I sort of see the harmonica from the corner of my eye.
Yeah.
Hello.
I know. Yeah. Well, I spend a lot of time guitar teaching now.
Awesome.
And so it's the same with that. I can spend a whole day at a school teaching, and then I get home and the first thing I'll feel like doing is playing guitar again, because
Well, you're incredible. I was checking out Radiumized Horse.
Right.
On Instagram the other day.
Yeah.
What's that all about?
It's
3 guys that should know better. It says
3
on the
guys
tagline.
that should know. Well, it's born out of frustration, because the one thing I think from being in bands, the one thing I miss more than anything is that initial creating, writing a song.
Yeah.
I've been out and played in jazz bands, I've played in covers bands, and it's good fun. But coming up with your own little idea, your own thing, there's that moment where you just come up with a set of notes, a little riff, a chord progression, whatever, and you just think, my God, this is so good, and you've got to record it.
Listen to me, I'm amazing.
Yeah. and so it's like that with this. It was just years of not writing songs, and then I think it's probably nearly 10 years ago. That was when I was trying to again write some ideas for A and stuff. Nothing came of it. And then I said to my dad, I said, I've listened to these, what do you think? And my dad went, well, yeah, they sound pretty good. And I said, well, I just got to find a singer now or a band. And I think that's my dad who said, well, Jeff Beck don't have a singer. He just goes out there and does it himself. And that planted that little seed of I'll come up with a little melodic guitar part to go over top. And then, no one's waiting for a Mark Chapman record to come along, so there's no pressure. It's just then, right, I've got a couple of hours free, I've got a half term like this week, I came up with another idea, I'm thinking...
Fantastic.
Yeah, like yourself.
This is what I do, I sit here and, 7 of the 12 tracks on that album are instrumental. I've got I had about 25, 24 songs.
Yeah.
But they weren't, half of them were instrumental. So I was going to do a double album of songs and then instrumentals.
Yeah.
Or I just layered up the harmonicas. Just, really went for it on some of them. And just made it for myself, really.
Yeah.
So that I can go, look what I've done.
Yeah.
Hopefully my mum will pin it on the fridge and say,
well, that's the thing, yeah. You never know. You might get lucky with it. You might get out there. But it's like with Radiumized Horse, it's just I mean, we got together... last week down at Cafe Studios, and we hadn't played together in about a year. There's just me, Simon Dawson, Steve Hampson, and and because of COVID, everything.
Yeah.
And then we decided, right, we'll get together, and it was the most fun again. There's always an excuse not to drag yourself out of the house after tea.
Oh, mate, I really look for every excuse not to, especially if I've got to go to a rehearsal studios or anything like that, and it's like, I feel like I'm on the clock, I feel like, oh, it's till 10 o'clock, and I don't know if I can stay up that late anymore.
Yeah. And it was like that, but we turned up, and we plugged in, and we just thought, right, what are we going to do here?
They're incredible musicians, them two. I mean, that
they're great.
Whoa.
They're great.
Yeah,
and Dawson, he's got a real, he's got a real jazzy side to him as well. He's you don't hear it a lot with what he does, but blimey.
I did. I felt that just from the Instagram videos, I felt there was a Rush touch in there.
Yeah,
definitely,
there is.
mate.
There's lots.
The jazz stuff you were coming out on that guitar was just mind blowing.
Yeah,
it's just, right. If I should ever find those notes on a mouth organ, I will.
That's the thing. Yeah, you just keep learning, and that's the thing. You feel sort of invincible doing it because you've created it. It's yours. When we get together and the fingers are working.
That's interesting you said it, because I feel quite vulnerable, especially with the new album, mate. I mean, the harmonica community is very tight knit,
right?
And I almost got this massive fear that what
you're not good enough.
What I'll get is just crickets.
Yeah,
that they will just go.
Yeah,
because there's a couple of harmonica players out there. They're very traditionalist as a group anyway,
right.
And there's one particular harmonica player out there that. Everything he does, I mean, he'll sit there in front of his computer, jam, and everyone will go, "Oh, it's amazing!"
Right.
There'll be 10,000 listens and likes and views and stuff like that. I'm like, "Well, I've just put together a whole album. I played the guitar, bass, and everything. What do you want from me?"
Yeah.
And to that point, I have a word with myself and go, "That's not why you did it, Paul, is it?"
Do you know who you should listen to on a lot of interviews? Guitar player Steve Vai.
Yeah, I do watch him on Instagram.
He's so philosophical about
Really?
his and how he talks about like exactly what you were saying, how on one shoulder you'll have this little angel going, "This is amazing, this is the best thing ever." On the other shoulder you got someone going, "Are you sure you want anyone to hear this? It's not as good as so." And he's just got this whole way of just
that's amazing.
Just
to
getting
hear him
rid of
say
that. Yeah,
because he's a genius.
I know, but he said years ago he just put that side of his brain to bed. He was like, "No, I'm going to be fearless and do what I want." And so I think nowadays, the older I get, the less I care in a way about what anyone thinks. Because I know when I've recorded an idea and it's decent, I think, do you know what, I could play that anywhere.
That's some good confidence. I need to have a bit of that. I need to
but
that.
It
That's
comes
good.
And goes.
And get that other guy, get this devil off that
but
shoulder.
he's great.
Really
you listen to some of that stuff, and he's very inspiring.
I did catch one thing. Obviously, it is because I watched Rick Beato. It was in his interview with Rick, and he said that he's trying to get out of ruts in his songwriting because. He was a man. I mean, I've kept some fairly heavy practice schedules on my harmonica when I was younger.
Yeah.
4 or 5 hours a day. But he did 12.
Yeah.
3 on chords, 3 on arpeggios, 3 on scales, and then 3 of jamming. So my God.
I know.
And he said that he would basically ended up writing an album's worth of stuff that was just based around his practice routine.
Yeah.
And then he recognised that and then had to move away from that.
Yeah, with the Radiomized Horse stuff. Yeah, there's a few flashy bits where I was like, Santa Dawson, come on, go for it on this. But it's not all like that. But
I think
the song has got
to
it's got to have a point to it. Endless arpeggios and whittling around on a guitar neck. Oh God, I just don't want to hear that,
No,
but if it's got a melody, if it's got a core to it,
a structure,
absolutely, yeah.
Well, that's when it stops being I mean, I've been a big fan of instrumental albums all my life. I mean, there are so many harmonica instrumental albums, and before that, I grew up. My dad, you were talking earlier about your dad's, your parents' record collection, and my dad did buy the vinyl, not that we could afford it, but he bought it anyway.
Yeah.
And a motorbike because he needed to cling to his youth for
Yeah.
But there was a lot of albums right now. Amongst there was Tubular Bells, and then as I got older, he bought Surfing with the Alien.
Right.
So he was into a lot. There was a lot of Joe Satriani, especially as an older teenager going around when I would go and stay with him.
Yeah.
So instrumental albums was something that I always still. When I said to people, "I'm going to do an instrumental album full of harmonicas," why would anyone listen to that?
Yeah.
Well, I would. Definitely.
Yeah. People who know, don't they? They really do.
Yeah, so that's awesome, mate. So is there a plan to sort of get that project sort of recorded or released?
Yeah, kind of. But we because we had such a good rehearsal the other day, we've sort of thought, well, maybe now, because do you know Raoul?
Yeah, of course. I was
Yeah.
going to say, he said to say hello. I
I
told
know.
him that you were coming over.
He's a brilliant guy.
And he said to say hello. He's mastered all 3 of my albums.
Yeah. Well, he's now building a bigger studio with a live
Yeah, I
room
saw it's
sort of
coming
thing.
on, isn't it? I'm
And
excited.
he's such a big A fan. You find
Yeah.
it time and time again, like once they find out you're in A, they're like, "Oh God, yeah, I'd love to work with you," and it's lovely. But I
Yeah.
don't want to take the piss out of people and
No,
just
this
feel.
is what I did to him. He's so enthusiastic about
Yeah.
what I'm doing.
Yeah.
The first album he charged me like standard
Yeah.
rate. And the next album even cheaper. This album next time I'll be paying him.
Yeah,
You know?
yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
he'll
yeah.
be paying me.
Yeah.
Sorry. So it's like I want to pay you because you do such
Yeah.
an amazing job on the mixing and mastering. Don't make a loss on it,
No.
mate. But he's such a good guy.
Yeah.
And he so wants to help.
So I think I've mentioned to him about, look, what about the 3 of us? We turn up and like put a weekend aside and we do it totally live. We do each song 3
wow.
times.
Yeah.
And just get that sound like they used to do back in the day.
Yeah,
And
right. I
so
mean,
what
that
if
was-
it's not perfect and there's no overdubs and harmonies? What if it's just a bloody live thing? So maybe that. I don't know.
I think the world definitely needs that. I think we're fed up with auto tune.
Yeah.
We're fed up with things being cleaned up so much. I mean, I was watching a YouTube channel the other day, and the guy was saying about when he said like tips on home recording your lead lines and stuff like that. Accidentally hitting other strings or string squeak or anything like that. Tape down the other strings you aren't using. Like, what? He said because otherwise he spends time taking that noise out.
Yeah.
That's a human being playing a guitar. And I know if it's bad technique and it muddies the tune.
If you record it and it sounds shit, then yeah, redo it. Absolutely. But
however,
listen to Back in Black by AC/DC. It's one of the greatest sounding rock albums ever, and it was the sound of those 4 in a room playing, and then they put the vocals on it. You do lose the more you try and add and tweak and snap to grid and all of that stuff, as we know. I mean, yeah. So maybe we're spoken
I think you
about
should definitely do that. That sounds super exciting. It really does.
Yeah. But no, it's good fun. And the reason it's called Radiumised Horse is because I was teaching a chap. He'd done something to his ankle, so he couldn't come to mine for lessons. So I went to his house. And his descendants were part of the Sanger Circus, which was a big animal circus back hundreds of years ago, a while back.
Okay.
Right?
He should be playing guitar, not talking about his family history.
And I was sat in his kitchen. We're having a cup of coffee before the lesson, and he's making me a cup of coffee. And on the wall there was a poster like Sanger Circus, and it had all these like exotic animals that were back in the day, and halfway down this poster it said a radiumised horse, and I sat there, drank my coffee, and went, "What the hell is that?" And I got up and looked and made sure I'd seen it properly. He said, "Oh yeah, they used to feed these horses radium or whatever, and so they'd lose all the hair, they'd slowly die, but apparently it was a thing. They'd wheel these horses
Fucking
out.
glow in the dark or something.
Yeah, well, exactly. I was like, what is a radiumised
My
horse?
God.
And I then thought, well...
That's a kind of benefit for Mr. Kite moment, that is. Like seeing a poster and then going, I'll have some of that.
Oh, bloody
Great.
hell. So then I remember, this was probably 3 or 4 years ago, and then I went sort of meet up with Simon and Steve, little rehearsal, and I said, I think I might have found a band name. And I think Simon spat his mouth full of tea out and went, that's brilliant. Radiumised horse.
Well, you certainly remember it.
It was a real thing.
You Google that in the...
Well,
these
I
days,
tried, and there's nothing come up, unless they've added it by then.
It certainly won't be first in the record
No,
shops,
I even
unfortunately.
took a photo of the poster just to make sure I didn't dream it. Bloody hell. Yeah, back in the good old days, unless you're a horse.
Blimey.
Yeah, good old humans, eh?
So that's what you got next. Any more recording for A? Anything like that? Do you guys get together and write any more? Or anything
Do you know
like that?
what? This has been going on for about 10 years as well,
Is it?
and everyone's so busy. I'm constantly playing guitar every day. I'm constantly sending off little riffs to Jace.
Right.
But it's got to come from Jason at the end of the day.
Is that how you guys wrote? Was it very much like, I've got this bit, you got that bit?
It kind of did, yeah.
Okay.
There's very rarely an A song would come from a vocal melody. It was always, like back in the day, me and Dan would constantly come up with, like, oh, check this out, I've got this idea. And me and Dan used to write a lot together. or confide in each other.
Sorry,
Dan Carter's a bass player,
original
but
bass-
he's brilliant,
okay, yeah.
brilliant guitar
You
player.
seem to go through a few bass players, I noticed, through
Yeah, there's
Wikipedia
been
page.
no one. Well,
Like
we've got
the drummers
Tim now.
from Spinal Tap.
Yeah. Well, because Jason was working with bands like Kids in Glass Houses, he met their bass player Shay, and when we were looking for a bass player, he helped us out. Then Dougie from McFly decided, oh well, I'd love to help you out for a tour. So it was just like, right, well, they want to come on for a tour. There was never any massive commitment because we, as a band, by that point, it was like, well, we've got the tour booked. We need a band. Let's, But there was never like we're writing a new album, so we need a solid unit of people. As long as me, Adam, Jace were there to sort of pull it all together, it was fine. So yeah, we got Tim now, who's been with us for a while, and he seems to enjoy it and fit in perfectly. But so never say never on the writing front.
Sure.
But
not a priority and not a sort of thing, for want of a better term, at the moment.
But if I sort of send Jason an idea and say, check this out, if I get that enthusiastic response, oh, this is great, we can work on it, that's great. But then after 6 months, I'll think, well, I'll horse that one. We'll make that into an instrumental.
We'll radiumise that one.
Yeah, we'll irradiate that one.
It's great. It sounds like you've got an outlet for your creativity.
Yeah.
And like you say, you're still playing guitar, which is, to be honest, and what you said right from the start, what you've always wanted to do.
Yeah.
So it's living the dream then.
I know,
isn't it,
you
really?
kind of are. You're careful what you wish for, because so many people, like famous people who have kind of, I guess, made it for a long period of time, it destroys them.
Right.
That wealth, that fame. And
you've seen a bit of that over years.
There's been people who've come and gone, you look at, like, back in the day when we were touring with bands like Fide, they lost their drummer John very early
car
on.
crash, wasn't
That was
he was out of his mind.
So there's, so to have, like, your family and your friends that you've still had for years, and to have this closeness with your band still, when we meet up for this Reef tour,
it's going to be great.
It's going to be like a school trip again. It's just, you go back to that person.
Yeah. I'm definitely coming to the April gig. I'll buy me tickets today. So awesome.
And it's just, and you look at what's going on in the world, and you think, my God, this is good fun. It could be a lot worse. But I haven't bought my gold rocket car quite yet on the back of it.
Well, it sounds like a lot of things kept you very grounded over the years, specifically like having a young family from start off with. That could have, in a way, thinking about it, stopped you from... could stop you from going mental, because you had to be back, you had to be sane, you had to be straight, because your baby's coming. Right? You couldn't.
And the flip side of that,
and go mental.
With Michelle, she never once said, "You're not doing this anymore." You've got to be at home, because she knew, I play guitar and I still love it, and that's what I do. So very, very lucky, to be with the same person that I was with, my God, 30 years ago, through all of this, Even now, as the Reef tour comes closer, there's always a drama, there's always a text or something. You're like, oh my God, here we go again.
From other bands?
Well, no, just from us. There's always within our little, as with any band, there's always something going on somewhere.
Yeah.
And now you're thinking, here it all comes again. But you wouldn't miss it, would you?
No, you wouldn't miss it. No, and thankfully it's only for a limited period of time, isn't it? And then you get to go back to normality. Or back to playing your guitar. And
so hopefully, it'll be good fun. I mean, we sort of know the Reef boys from a while ago.
Yeah. I always shout for Summers in Bloom. I always look straight at the bass player. Yeah. Straight at Jack, and I shout, "Summers in Bloom!" at the top of my lungs. And he clocks me, and I swear to God, I did that at the last gig I went to see him at the Hammersmith Apollo, whatever it's called now, and he starts the song, boom, and I swear to God, he started it because I shouted at him. I'm sure he didn't, but I am sure. I'm convinced he did it because I screamed at him. Or the other fun thing is to look at Gary and say, "Play naked."
Yeah.
It looks a bit like, what? Oh, the
you
song.
Really
the
don't
song,
want to see
the
that.
song, mate,
From what I remember
he looks like a fine cut of a man, doesn't he?
One of the hairiest human beings on the planet.
Is
I remember
that right?
walking into our dressing room one night. This was back in '99.
A rock and roll story at last.
We played like
an hour. Here we go.
with them and over in Ireland and a couple of other sort of nice chunky gigs with them.
Yeah.
And he walked into our dressing room, and like topless and the hairiest looking person. Like, my God, what is going on? But yeah, lovely bunch of blokes.
I saw Jack's a bass player. Right?
Yeah.
I saw him at that same gig I'm talking about. Me and my sister were stood in line like to get in, and because I hadn't seen him, I had seen him with his big beard, but I hadn't, I didn't know it was totally a thing. And so this guy in flip flops, shorts, and a white shirt with an acoustic guitar and a harmonica and a rack.
Right.
Like walks across the roads, like under, because there's that like railway bridge.
Yeah.
So he walks across the road from there, walks all the way up, and I'm like, that's that bloody bass player. That's Jack. He's been out busking. So he walks with his flip flops right up to the security, gets in the back, and then half hour later we see him on stage. He'd been out busking.
Really?
Yeah, or something. Just big jumbo acoustic.
Yeah.
Harmonica in a rack.
Amazing.
Well, yeah, cool.
I was a massive fan of Kenwyn.
Yes.
Back in the day.
Oh God, yeah.
Again, just that real laid back style, that bluesy sort of thing. Incredible guitarist.
Yeah, it was just like everything we'd ever wanted or loved from our 70s.
Yeah.
70s rock gods.
Yeah.
Blues. Riffula. From our Zeppelin.
Sort of thing.
Yeah, it was everything like that, just slightly behind the beat.
Yeah.
Pushing it a little bit. Sometimes it was everything. Just that, even I think like it's like even now makes the hair on the back of my neck stand up, and it's just like that guy is just What do we know what he's doing now? What's he up to?
I have no idea. No idea.
I was wondering if he might want to join a harmonica player for a band.
You know what? There's every chance, I would think.
I doubt it.
But yeah.
Good stuff.
Yeah. So a fair play. They've kept it going.
They really have, yeah. And managed to keep coming out with fresh songs, and fresh albums and fresh stuff.
Yeah.
Which is good. It's the last one was quite gospel-y from them, wasn't it?
Yeah, I don't know, to be honest. But,
I say, they had the three backing vocalists and stuff like that, and it was proper gospel and stuff like that. But still good. Still love it. Always love them. I don't think they played "Place Your Hands." They might be sick of that. I don't know.
Right. That was the one, though, wasn't it?
It was. They
should do it first. Get it done out of the way.
Paid the mortgage. I remember reading an interview when they'd got because TFI Friday was using it back in the 90s.
Yeah, they were.
And he said that started to piss me off because you do a gig and all the audience would shout is "Place your hands." He said, and all they wanted you to do was place your hands 20 times over and go home. He said, but then the checks started coming and kept coming and kept coming.
That's a trade-off, isn't it? And you hear that time and time again with bands, you know. But
well, it'd be nice. It would be nice, and I've discussed this on this podcast before with other musicians. It'd be nice to have the one hit, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And then just that pays, like you say, pays off the mortgage, pays a bit, so then I can do whatever I like.
Exactly.
So then I can actually play harmonica or play music for a living instead of making magazines.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, Mark, mate, we got to the top of the hour. Thank you so much for sharing your time and knowledge with us. Really, really appreciate it.
Pleasure.
Thanks for coming over, and please, if you feel free to come and talk about Radiumised Horse with us when you got it going on, mate. I'd absolutely love it.
Yeah. Okay. Will do. Promise.
Lovely. Thanks. Nice to see you.
Thank you.
Easy.